Hey, what's up YouTube? Mike here. Today we're going to go over delegates and protocols. And that is a topic that is used and discussed a lot in the Swift, Xcode, iOS community. And it's one that I particularly, I had some issues with that I just had to drill down and get to the point where I can teach it, and now I'm ready to go and help you guys out. So I hope you enjoy it, and let's check out the steps we need to make it happen. Alright, so step number one, we're going to create a protocol instance in the sender view controller. Now for this we're going to have a sender and a receiver, and in the sender view controller is going to be the data that you're sending, and then the receiver, obviously is going to be the one that receives the data. So it's just easier to separate it out and just look at it binary that way, for me at least, and hopefully it'll be useful for you guys too. Next we're going to create a variable for the delegate in the sender view controller. Then we're going to go over to the receiver and we're going to add a reference to self. Basically it's like ViewController.delegate equals self, and it's got to go somewhere in the receiver view controller. The next step is to create an extension in that same view controller, the receiver, that conforms to the delegate that we created. So if this sounds confusing to you, don't worry, it did to me at first, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding at the end of this. Alright, so first things first, we're going to open up Xcode. We're going to create a new project. And here is the project. And we're going to call it, go in here, we're going to call it Delegates Protocols. And we're going to use Swift. We don't need to check these boxes. Let's get it going. Save it on the desktop. And here we are. Next we're going to go into the main storyboard and we're going to set up the project. Now, we're going to have a sender and a receiver, as I said earlier. This first view controller is going to be the sender, so let's just make sure it understands that. Sender view controller, I'm going to rename this because you want these to always be the same, so that, just so that it makes sense for you too. Because when you're in another view controller and you're trying to reference this view controller, you are going to want to say what's up here. You're going to want to say sender view controller, and if it's different than what's in the class, then it's confusing. It is, especially when you're dealing with a lot of view controllers in a big file, large app, something like that, which is what I'm dealing with now in my new job at Impulse, which I'm going to start a video blog, or vlog as the kids like to call it, about my experiences at that job. So yeah, check that out too. Alright, let's get back to this. And this view controller, we're going to change the class that it's referring to the sender view controller here. And I'm going to move through this fast, so comment, add me on Twitter, let me know if there's something that I moved too fast in as far as setting up the UI. And next thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a view controller, and this will be the receiver view controller. And we're going to make a new file to target that receiver view controller. And I hate this word, receiver. It's like the most difficult word because it's one of those I before E kind of rules in English. If you don't speak English, you're lucky. You don't have to deal with these kind of rules. Everything kind of sounds how it's spelled, but don't worry, especially if English isn't your first language, if you have trouble with this word. Like, it sucks. And the rule sucks. So, we're going to make receiver view controller. There it is. Let's put it right under the sender just because we can. And in here, I'm going to say receiver view controller. So we've got those set up. Now what we want to do, so we can tell the difference, let's change the background. So that's a dark gray, and then we'll change the background of this to, I don't know, like blue or something. Yeah. And then, I don't know, this blue would just bug my eyes. Let's give it a little, darker, maybe a navy blue. That's not too bad. All right. So here we're going to add a label. And so if I wasn't clear here, the receiver is going to be the initial view controller, and we're going to go over to the sender, and then we're going to come back to the receiver. So say if you're going, if you want the initial view controller, like the way it was just set up, if you want to send data just from one view controller to another, and it's just direct, you want to use the perform segue function. So, either Google that or check out, I have a video on that. So segues are a little bit easier to implement, and that's the preferred Swifty way to send data to a controller, view controller that you're going to next. So what this one's going to do, to be clear, is we're going to add a button here. And this button is go to sender view controller, and it's basically just going to segue over to the sender, or instantiate it actually to do like a pop-up version. So let's text will appear here. So when we send it, it's going to appear there. And especially if you're sending text backwards like we are in this case, the delegates and protocols is the preferred way to do that. And it's really not that complicated once you do it a few times. So we want to center that horizontally in the container. And let's just attach some constraints to it. And the black text, of course, is not going to look good. And then we want the button. There we go. And then the text in the button. Yeah, that can be black. Yeah, this is the design of the year right here, guys. I'm telling you. So in the sender view controller, this is where we're going to pass the data. So we're going to do text field, which, if you're not familiar, it's basically a text box. If you have an iPhone, you've typed into a text field. I'm going to add another button. Goes right here. And we want to take this, and we want to add these constraints here where it's like 50 on one side, 50 on the other. So it's about the same thing as centering it in the container, except it stretches the text field so that the user knows what they're looking at, and realizes that they can put text there. So we're going to add all these constraints, and everything should be good. For the button, we want to we're going to center it horizontally. And then, yeah, this one, the sender view controller button on the other side, we also have to center that horizontally. Now to edit this button, it's going to be send text to receiver. And we're going to bring this back down. It's navy blue. Change the text to white. I mean, you guys don't have to do all the stuff like this. And now we're going to set up the IB outlets and actions to the sender and receiver view controller. So the sender view controller, going to sending text field. And I know we should use camel case and capitalized field here too, It's just a typo. I'm just going to leave it like that. And then we need an action here from this button. Send data button pressed. And then over here in the receiver view controller, don't want to do segues right now. We're going to put this label. Receive text label. We're going to add a function right here for the press button. And by the way, what I'm doing right here and dragging everything over is a control drag. So you just hold down the control button and drag it over after you click this inspector. And go to sender pressed. Now we're going to fill some of this stuff in. Not the delegates and protocol stuff yet, but we're going to fill out the go to sender pressed. We want to make the other view controllers show up. So in the receiver view controller, which we're in right now, we want to create a view controller. So let vc equals storyboard dot instantiate view controller with identifier, and then the identifier is going to be sender view controller. And then let's give us more space here. And then we're going to cast it as the sender view controller. Now, so basically what this is doing is we're creating an instance of the sender view controller, and then here we're going to present it. I want it to be animated true and completion nil. And then, obviously another thing we're going to need to do when we go to the sender view controller and that send data button is pressed, in the sender, we're going to dismiss the view controller. And animated true, completion nil. And there we go. So everything is set up for the app, and now we can start with the first step. And we're going to create a protocol here in the sender view controller, and we're going to do it up here outside of the class declaration. So the protocol and the extension are both going to be outside the class declaration. And here we're going to call it text delegate. I know that the word's confusing. You just got to kind of get used to it. It's just how it is. Especially for me, it was like protocol, and then we're calling the protocol delegate. What the hell? Like, oh my God, I completely understand and have been there. So we're going to func, and it's going to be send text and with text string. Now let me explain this. We're not putting brackets here. This is not an actual function. This is referring to a function that we're going to call later. So okay, there we go. So basically this is going to be called in the extension in the other view controller. This is all we need for the protocol right now. So whatever you're trying to send, you just want to put in the function's name and then put in the parameter that you want to send. And in our case it's string. And the way I like to say with text, so that people can understand when they come into the app. Working in the company that I started at, that's how we set things up, so that you type with text, what with what, where to put it. It just kind of rolls together and makes more sense. So now we're going to move on to step 2, and we're going to create a variable that is the delegate And you can call it whatever you want. If you're using multiple delegates, call it something else like text delegate, but we're only using one, so we're going to do delegate. And it's equal to text delegate. And this is an optional. So just to be safe, we're going to do optional chaining down here, which if you're not familiar, look that up. That's used a lot in Swift. And down here, we're going to add what we want to send, which is basically calling on that function. I didn't put it in the steps, and I'm not putting the other what we're doing inside the function in the extension in the steps, because you can really apply it however you want. You can take these 4 steps and do it with whatever functions, variables. You can look that up on Stack Overflow. It's done basically the same way. So here, I'm going to say delegate dot send text, and the text is going to be that sending text field dot text. And so it should pop up here. Yep, it's going to pop up here, and it's going to want to provide a default value, which is very understandable. And it's going to say no text input. Like if the sending text field dot text is left blank, basically it's going to say no text input in that label. So now we move on to step 3, and in step 3 we're going to go into the receiver view controller, and we're going to create an instance to self here. So basically we're going to say bc dot delegate, and this is referring, if you do alt click, or was it control, or is it option click on a Mac keyboard, it's declared in sender view controller, and we're referencing this delegate. So we're going to set that delegate equal to self, which is our receiver view controller. Now you can also do all this in the view did load here. If you're not doing the whole instantiate view controller and present, but since we're already doing it, we just put it down here. And anybody that's worked with table views, you'll do table view dot delegate equals self. You'll do it the same way. So that's essentially what we're doing, is adding a delegate as self. And this one, that's going to go away in a minute after we add our extension here. An extension, again, will go outside of the class declaration, and it's going to be an extension of the receiver view controller, and it's going to be called text delegate, which is the same name of the protocol we created. And so this should go away now, and this is going to pop up now and say type receiver view controller does not conform to the protocol. And when you click this, it's going to say you want to add protocol stubs. Same as with table views, collection views. If you guys have done any Swift work, you've probably seen this stuff. And if not, don't worry. This is a great way to understand it. The back end of how table views and any delegate protocol system works. And here in send text, this is where we're going to put the function where we change the text label. So receive text label dot text is going to equal our with text that was in over here that we put in the sender view controller. So it's going to either be sending text field text, and if that's nil, it's going to be no text input. And we have everything going well here. And let's see how it works. And it's throwing errors at me because of a crucial mistake that I made. So here in the receiver view controller, it says instantiate view controller with name sender view controller identifier sender view controller. And in the main storyboard, in order to set that up, you have to go into the sender view controller, and you have to change not the title, the storyboard ID, to sender view controller. And it's like using identifiers with cells. So that was was a huge goof on my part, and now we're going to run it again, and it should work. Here it is. Say go to sender ViewController, and we're going to say delegates and protocols. Protocols. Yay! And we're going to send that text. And there we go. So everything is taken care of. You can also do it the same way, not just between one ViewController and the next. You can, like I said, set it up in the ViewDidLoad, and you can pass, in the receiver ViewController, you want to set up the ViewDidLoad with this stuff. And then you can do it that way, and you can send text from, even if there are 5 ViewControllers apart, you can come back and send the text. So go back and set that. And thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Smash that like button. And my friends always make fun of me for being on YouTube. They're like, "Yeah, you yell at them to smash that like button, huh?" And I never have, but I will now. And so smash the like button. Subscribe if you like my content. And yeah, hit me up on Twitter if you want to chat. Miles of Tweets is my Twitter. This file will also be down in the GitHub link in the bio, not in the bio, in the description. So thanks everybody, and I hope you enjoyed it.